have to say, having just started diving into your book, this is going to be a fun conversation. I believe because you are speaking a fantastic message that is so needed, particularly to us men. You know, the male of the species. So I'm so glad you're joining me today on Sexy Marriage Radio.
Corey, thank you for having me on. I'm so honored to be here.
And I'm just let's just jump in because you made a comment early on of you just separated out the idea of there's sensuality and there's sexuality.
Yes.
And those aren't always the same. They overlap, but they're not the same. So let's go.
Yeah. So, I mean, and we often talk about them in the same way, right? Like sensuality is sexuality, but sensuality is of the senses, right? Your five senses. It's how you taste, touch, see, smell, hear the world, right? That's sensuality. And sensuality is not sexuality, meaning sexuality is built on sensuality. Certainly, it is a very powerful experience of sensuality, and it's even a celebration of that. You have 4,000 taste buds on your tongue. You have 8 to 10,000 nerve endings in your genitalia, meaning you are by design created to experience sensual pleasure in sexuality. But beyond that, right? Because your experience of eating, and again, we don't eat this way as a culture, right? We get it done, right? Put the food in, move on.
Well, let's be careful because that's not my wife. She is a foodie,
oh, that's awesome.
And she is that. No, I want to taste all of that.
Oh, that's so good to hear.
Yeah, that's an aspect that she embodies a lot more than I, for sure. I'm a get the job done, let's move on, which is so sad because I do that with sex sometimes too. But I digress. Keep going.
Well, we can all aspire to Pam because Pam, right, is your wife.
Yes, you got it.
Pam. We can all aspire to Pam here because it is true that I've had to learn how to slow down and savor. And obviously, writing this book and as it smoke what I sell, as I say, right, to actually live out what I'm writing. And so I've been working on slowing down for things like eating or even just taking in a sunset. The other day, my 7-year-old son ran in and, Dad, there's a double rainbow. Right. And so like the visual sensuality of like standing in the street in the middle of our street after a rainstorm and just taking in a rainbow. Right. That was a sensual moment of pleasure. And why this delineation for men? Well, again, I think as what you're naming and certainly my experience, men, we don't stop to get in our body, right? We're
right.
It feels like masculine culture trains us more to get the job done, keep pushing, press through hard things, grit, right? Grit is the thing you're invited to. You're not invited to slow down and savor something, right? Like take the shortest breaks at work, get the job done, keep going, go. So I'm inviting in the first chapter this idea that you are at your core a lover, even as a man, that you are created for sensuality. And whether that's, I think about my buddies who love cigars, right? Like I think what that ritual is for them is the permission to actually pause and be, to not be on, and to be able to experience sensuality, right? Smoking a cigar is all sensuality, the different flavors and nuances. Or my friends that smoke brisket and meat, right? Like getting it dialed in, that's all about their palate, right? The sensuality of taste. So I think it's so important, and a starting point for a conversation with men about sexuality is getting back into your body.
Yeah.
Getting back into your sensuality, learning to actually slow down, because nobody's going to invite you to, hey, stop and feel again, stop and get back in your body.
Right. And that doesn't seem to either also equate to our sex lives. It's that element of it's an out of body experience a lot of times in some ways where it's like it's an act, sure, and it's a connection, yes, hopefully, but it's
Right.
sometimes at the expense of not even connecting with myself, is kind of the way you're framing this.
Right, right. There was and I have permission to share this, a client that said to me once, I knew what kind of day my husband had by how he made love to me that night. And she would say, when he had a bad day, I became the thing he had to conquer. And
Okay.
it was not fun. It was not
Right.
pleasurable, because it
Right.
was like he needed to get the task done and get some sort of feeling of release.
Right.
It wasn't, we're making love and slowing down and layers of sensuality and letting it unfold and foreplay and
Right.
right, being in the moment. It was get the task done. In other words, he had to conquer something at the end of his
Right.
day, and
Right.
she was the thing.
Right.
And that not being good for him long term
No.
or for her.
No. No. But that also describes a lot of sex lives.
Yes. Right.
Is it's a task, it's an act, it's a conquer,
Right.
what's so fascinating to me with this whole thing, Sam, is I'm guilty of it. I'm not going to just throw all the other guys and even ladies.
Yeah.
I think this is a human thing,
Hmm.
because senses are in both male female, so
That's right.
it's a sensual thing all the way through. Although your message is aimed more at the male and the
Hmm.
masculine side of things. But it's that element of how often we are going through life not really awake,
Yes.
asleep at the wheel, if you
Yes.
will, on
Yes.
aspects of some of the most intimate, great things that are there, and
Right.
we don't embody that when we're in it.
Right. Right. And I'm guilty as well. I mean, it's in part why I'm writing the book is out of my own story and my own journey. It took, my wife and I have been married 21 years, and it took 10 to 15 years for me to really know how to make love, not
Hmm.
just sort of do the act or get
Right.
release, or but how to be open and present and vulnerable and in my body more, and really be a lover to
Right.
her, and that, I think, I firmly believe sex was meant to be this kind of time away from time. It was meant to be this different state of being,
Hmm.
much like similar, like other situations of sensuality. Like when my son invites me out to go partake in seeing a double rainbow,
Right.
right? There's no
Right.
task.
Right.
It's just be
Right.
and take in the pleasure of the moment. And that, literally, I almost didn't come outside with my 7-year-old son because I think I was prepping dinner or something, right? And so it's like
Right.
I need to
There
be
was a
on task
task.
mode.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's a
there's a
task that
task,
needed to be done.
right? And so, like, this idea, especially as men, of like actually pausing,
Hmm.
and you don't need to perform. There's no task. You're just trying to be in the moment and take
Hmm.
it in. I think that's the posture we're meant to approach sex with, and I think that's the most fulfilling way to have it.
Oh, and that's when you also say that's one of the most fulfilling ways to do life. I mean, because
Yes.
I'm sitting here thinking, the last night from the morning we're recording this, my family went to a concert. So Journey,
Nice.
Def Leppard, and Steve Miller Band
Oh,
came
that's
through
awesome.
DFW, right? And so I'm sitting here. My son was sick, so he could not go. So daughter got a chance to invite a friend instead, and so we went, and he
Yeah.
just stayed home and slept. And um, I'm watching her and her friend just rock out to Journey, and got tears in my eyes because it was one of those, like, I'm just taking in the moment of how much
Yes.
joy it is. Because here it is now that we're recording. An hour ago, she drove off for her sophomore year of college,
Wow.
right? And so it's like,
Oh,
oh, okay, well, that was a kind of a good highlight moment together.
yes.
And so we got big stage changes going on, and it really
Yeah.
is so fascinating to me. See if this rings true on what your
Yeah.
message is. What's fascinating to me is I am wrestling with embodying and the senses,
Yeah.
even the things that kind of hurt,
Yes.
because that change, that shift, that
Yes.
unknown, that, all of
Yes.
that are the things that task keeps me from having to deal with it.
Yes. Well
But
said.
being vulnerable with it helps me actually experience it, which is a much healthier, as two therapists here, that's a much healthier thing to
Yeah,
do.
right. 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 The word I orient in the book around this idea of being in the moment is the word awe. And
Yeah.
it's, you think of like, again, the word awesome is overused, right? Anything can be awesome these days, but that sense we have of like the truly awe-inspiring moments, right? Like it can be a concert, it
Right.
can be a double rainbow, it could be a waterfall, it could be a beautiful moment with friends or community, it can
Yeah.
be sex, right? And
Yeah.
I think that's the posture we're meant to hold for the beautiful moments of life, including sexuality.
Yeah.
But as you're saying, we have in our language this idea you can also drop your jaw at the awful things,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like the painful things of life, the things that hurt, right? Like the loss or of somebody you love, or hard moments, right? You can,
Mm-hmm.
being open and being in the present with even painful grief is important. And I think it's what most men do tasks to get to, right?
Right.
Is the chance, right? Work hard, play hard.
Yep.
I just think as men we've lost the play hard, because
Okay. And let's pivot there, because you get into
yeah,
the idea of sex as play
yes,
in the book. So let's land there for a moment, because I think
uh-huh,
that's a fantastic framework for more than just men,
yes,
for women, for a couple to experience this as play totally changes the context in a lot of ways.
yeah, yeah. Sex is a beautiful, sensual place of being, and but it is also, I think, it obviously it plays out, right? It follows arousal cycles. It has to, for there to
Mm-hmm.
be, the fruition of orgasm, and your body is made to travel this arousal cycle
Right.
to resolution. And in a relational sense, that means participation in engaging each other's bodies in what I'm calling play. I think it's meant to be a form of play, because play is in life. In my research, sex follows play. The elements of play
Right.
are the best elements of sex, and when done well. And so um it's deeper than just sex can be playful. I think its essence is play. And when you think of play, play is this thing that is meant to be non utilitarian, right? It's not just getting the job done. Now you might be active and you might have a really powerful goal, right? Like
Right.
if you're on a soccer team, you want to score goals. If you're a football team, it is that end zone that you're
Yeah.
driving to. So you have a goal. And again, pursuing
Mm-hmm.
the pleasure of your partner and your own pleasure is a very good goal to have in sex,
Mm-hmm.
to truly be lovemaking. And um I think as men, and this is certainly true of me, like, and I have 3 sons, and so they're always challenging this in me. I've lost that kind of boyhood playfulness. It's been amazing when they invite me, like, Dad, come play.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Again, it's stepping out of our Western, get it done, keep working. There's always a task, there's always something else to do mode,
Mm-hmm.
and stepping into play, into like, we're going to just be in the moment,
Right.
and have fun. So, that can be throwing a football with my sons. That can be, going in the woods hunting. That can be pick up basketball on a Saturday morning. That can be a card game, right? That could be a
Right.
deep conversation.
Right.
There's a lot of things that can be playful in life. Um, but it requires you to step out of that utilitarian task mode. And I know sex, for a large majority of couples, has to be scheduled. It's something that they put on the calendar as a part of keeping it as a priority in life. And that's okay to obviously make it something that is a to-do list. But when you step into sex itself, it asks you to shift modes.
Right.
This isn't a place to get a job done.
Right. So it's almost like what you're this analogy. I think it fits. Is that when your parents have little ones, you schedule play dates,
Right.
right?
Well said.
So there you go. I'm scheduling a play date with my spouse.
I like that.
That'll work.
Yes, exactly. Right. And all you're saying by that is it has a priority for you.
Right, and
Right?
you're carving out time. I mean, we've had guests in the past that have talked about the scheduling aspect, and one was real articulate in the idea of you're just creating an availability. It doesn't
Yeah,
necessarily
that's well
mean
said.
sex has to happen,
Right.
because maybe you need to have a conversation about something else. Maybe you need to just go for a walk and connect in a different way that's
Right.
not sexual, but it's just that idea of create a time for availability. And what you're saying is for play. And that's
Yes.
almost like I got the opportunity, see if I'm tracking with you. I've got the opportunity with my senses and being sensual to try to find the moments as they appear in my
Yes.
day to day. And then I
Uh-huh.
also have the ability to try to create and cultivate that in
Right.
my marriage,
Right.
particularly in my sex life.
Well said.
Okay.
Exactly. Yes, and so, and again, I think as a couple, you need more places of play than just sex.
Yeah.
Meaning like it's good that, as you said, like maybe it's you need to go for a walk and just talk, right? Or maybe you need to read a book together. My wife and I have done couples yoga, right? and
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not a haven't been steeped in yoga, but it was a fun experience. It was a form
Right.
of play. We laughed together and experienced all the awkwardness of making those moves, and it was a different way of being with each other's bodies
Right.
than just sex. um but playing, dreaming about building a house or your next vacation, like those can be forms of play. Date night,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's best done as a form of, like, as you're saying, you're setting aside intentionality and space to be available, and to that you make your date night a form of play.
Right.
Play has such powerful impact on bonding, attachment, pleasure, delight. I mean, it does so much to the nervous system. And I think, like you're saying, obviously there are times for spontaneous play,
Mm-hmm.
spontaneous sex of, like, we're in the mood and it's a playful moment of
Mm-hmm.
flirtation, and sex unfolds in a playful way. That's beautiful and fun
Yeah.
and effervescent, and all that is really good. But it can also be, hey, we're going to set aside that time for it.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think it's so important to recognize, because I just think of what the mission of Sexy Marriage Radio and then the mission of your book, they are overlapping a lot in the sense
Mm.
that how do we reframe what we've normally, societally, religiously uh, kind of capped when it
Yeah.
comes to married sex, because it is a different beast at times, because
Hmm.
there has to be a transition. I mean, I jokingly talk about, you don't just have sex by accident. There
Yeah.
has to be some intent. There
Uh-huh.
has to be some actual pivot towards an instigation of to make it happen. And when you can add in these two elements of how am I bringing all of me, mainly my senses,
Hmm.
to my life, will make it more easy to bring that to my sex life.
Hmm.
And at the same time, how am I being playful? Because you're speaking my language. One of
Mm.
my, this isn't a spiritual gift, but I use it as, is I like to have fun with whatever I do. If
That's so cool.
I'll go to something that's like, are you really went to that? Yeah, I'm going to find a way to have fun with that though. I'll do something just to make it fun for me. And, and so it's just that idea of, I love the concept of play
Mm.
as it pertains to our marriage and as it pertains to our sex lives, because that's really a better way to describe it than an act.
Right. Right. And I think it provides, as you're naming so well, this space, that you can explore and be adventurous within the safety of, obviously, your connection with each other, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that it gives, you know language to even what consent is, right? Nothing will bring an entire stadium of people to their feet rather than a bad call from a ref, right? Like somebody who's not following the rules,
Right.
right? Who's breaking the rules will bring, an entire fan stadium to their feet and booing. And so, I mean, it just puts this exclamation point on the rules matter to play.
Right.
And so when within marriage, right, it's that safety of we're going to explore, but if somebody's saying no, right,
Yeah.
then we stop,
Yeah.
right? You don't cross
Yeah.
that line. And that
Yeah.
children kind of understand that when they play, right? Like, don't do that, right? Like,
Yeah.
they know how to talk about that with each other. Sex is the same, but it also, as you're naming, like to get it out of the religious kind of confines of, again, more duty towards procreation. I think God foregrounded pleasure.
Yeah.
I don't think it's just this duty. He meant it to be a
Oh,
place of
no,
lightness
because
and
if
play.
that's the case, the clitoris would not be a part of the female anatomy if it was
Well
not
said.
intended for pleasure. I mean, because that is
Right.
what that organ is for, is pleasure.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. With like 10,000 nerve endings,
Mm-hmm.
not minor in terms
Oh,
of
no, I'm totally jealous. I won't lie. I'm totally jealous.
Well said.
Okay.
Right.
So before we pivot into the extended context, we're going to keep the conversation going, obviously. But I want to give everybody, as we wrap up this segment, how can they find you and the book and what you're doing?
Yeah, great. So yeah, my book, The Sex Talk You Never Got, is out wherever you buy your books. So get it. Obviously, would love you to support independent bookstores, but Amazon, Barnes and Noble, wherever you like to get your books, it's there. And you can get bonuses, order bonuses. The book is out now. So at my website, samjolman, SAMJOLMAN.com, you can actually get a BOGO copy of the book. So if you buy a copy somewhere, my publisher's going to still send you a free copy of the book. Plus, there's an ebook, How to Give a Sex Talk to Your Children, there. I'm also on Substack, and so writing monthly newsletters on this topic, men and sexuality primarily, but we go bigger than that to trauma, spirituality, and all those things. So samjolman.substack.com.
Perfect. Well, Sam, thanks so much. This is such a good message, and I'm so glad you're getting it out there.
Thank you, Corey. This has been a rich conversation.